here on the sunny West Coast.
Well,
It's totally
that's
fine.
really back. And so, everybody, I'm broadcasting from Chapel Hill, North Carolina, home of the Carolina Tar Heels. And I'm not wearing baby blue today. I'm wearing pink because we need to brighten up everything since it's so cold everywhere.
Yes, it is. I was back east and it is really, really, really cold. So hope you warm up soon. But
Thank
Gail,
you.
I'm excited to talk about what our topic is today.
Yes, and the reason we wanted to talk about the idea of underperforming, and I'm going to use the quotes, underperforming major donors is that right now we're accepting applications for our major gifts intensive this year. And somebody wrote in, when somebody applies, they have to say what they're hoping to get out of the class and the course and the program. And somebody wrote, gosh, last fall that they had underperforming major donors. And we have thought and thought and thought about that concept, right, Beth Ann?
Absolutely. It really twigged my brain about, who would consider this as a phrase to use?
I know, and of course the first question we all asked ourselves, but who's really underperforming? Is it the donor
That's
or is
right.
it your organization and everybody in your organization?
Donors have a free will to give and they give as they're inspired and match their values. So I've thought a lot about what creates the elusive underperforming donor because I think donors don't think they're underperforming for
They
sure.
don't know they're underperforming. And so let's talk about who might be classified as an underperforming major donor. It could be somebody who has a DAF, a donor advice fund, right?
That's right. They used to be giving to you and now they're not giving to you, but you have an anonymous staff coming in, for instance.
Mhm.
It might also be someone, a lot of us have done wealth screenings on our entire database, and we see that this person has been shown that they could give a six, seven, or greater figure gift. And yet here we are in the three, four, five figure area with them.
That is aggravating. That is annoying.
Well, it's annoying, but we have to do the inspiration. Another one I can think of, Gail, is the board member or one of your champions says, here's someone who can give X. I'm sure of it.
How many times have we worked with a client or a major gifts intensive participant and they say, this person has enough money to buy and sell our entire organization, but they're only giving us $5,000. How many times have we heard that?
So much. And on the same hand, sometimes we're afraid to get into conversations with those donors, right? Because they have such vast resources that a fear strikes us about getting into conversation and not doing well. So but Gail, you mentioned that other things could be underperforming. What are you thinking there?
Well, we're going to bless and release our poor donors who are giving at the level they're giving, and let's look at what we can do in our organizations to to address the issue. And
That's
the first thing is maybe you have classified them erroneously.
right. Mhm.
Should they really be a major donor? Just because they're giving $1 million to the organization down the street doesn't mean they feel as passionately about your organization. So my first point I think we should put on the table for everybody today is, should they really be considered major donor prospects to your organization or not? What do you think
That's
about?
Well, sometimes we hang everything on their ability, but we don't think about their belief or connection. And you need at least two. You really do.
Ability, and then you got to have the interest and passion,
Yes,
right?
that's right. That's right.
And so let's talk about that because building interest and passion is the job of the fundraiser and
Yes,
the
absolutely.
organization. And also, another job that we have to do on the organization nonprofit side is evaluating our donors correctly so that we can ask them discovery questions to find out how passionate they. So I guess the first step, wouldn't you say, is evaluating and doing your proper discovery.
Yes, there's sort of three things here that we talk about in the Major Gifts Intensive. We talk a lot about conversational asking, and that helps you do the discovery that you need. And we talk about prospects and suspects. Suspects are somebody we kind of think, but we can't, or have wealth, but we can't really engage them. And those are three important things to think about when you talk about whether a donor can give at the level of their ability.
And we talk a lot about whether a donor is a suspect or a prospect. And in
Mm-hmm.
order to make that journey from suspect to prospect, they have to be qualified. And you qualify a donor through discovery questions, and remember, everybody who's ever going to listen to this LinkedIn live video, that the donors that you classify as major donors have got to have the interest and the enthusiasm as
Mm-hmm.
well as the capacity. And that is the key question that qualification and discovery asks. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes. And in one of our deep dives, we talk about the quadrant and looking at who are your great donors and who are your lower donors. But in these two quadrants here, about people who have ability and people who have belief, how do we move them and engage them in conversation to inspire them to be part of the solution?
So we have talked a bit about discovery, and if I may, I was making some notes for this conversation,
Yeah.
Bethany, and I wrote down a couple of discovery questions. It's one thing we teach in all of our workshops, and in the Major Gifts Intensive, we teach these discovery questions. And how do you ask a donor how interested they are in your organization or not? What are your favorite discovery?
Well, I love doing this when we get into conversations with donors, but I like to ask them what resonates most with what we do or with our mission. Not categorizing one, two, three, but what resonates most. It unfolds the most beautiful stories sometimes.
I know when I have asked that question, I'm blown away with what comes out of the donor's mouth.
Yes, yes.
I have long believed and based a lot of my trainings and life's work on the idea that if you just get somebody to talk about how they feel, they're going to talk themselves into being more enthusiastic. And
Exactly.
one of our, I mean, we have to do another one on listening skills. It's just a matter of shutting up and letting the donor talk. Because the more the donor talks, the more they get in touch with the feeling. We're so analytical up here. And I remember I wrote a blog post once called Mushy Donors. Big heart. So it's our job, like you were saying, to open their hearts by asking them what really resonates most with them about our work. So
That's
by
right.
y'all take that home and try it out today on your favorite donor.
Do you have a favorite question, Gail?
This was a question that I never ever had the nerve to ask when I was a frontline fundraiser. Yet, as capital campaign consultants, we have a lot of feasibility study interviews with donors, and we ask this question we as a consultant, I'll ask a donor this question, and the question is, what would it take for this organization or our organization to become one of your top three philanthropic priorities?
Yes.
No, and I mean, boom, boom, you find out the path. Have you ever asked that question?
No, not when I was a working donor or working fundraiser either. But I think this is so important, Gail, to talk about how you sometimes fear getting that, well, it's not your organization. And when you, as a consultant, don't feel attached to that, it's so easy to ask. And I really encourage fundraisers to start asking that to open up an interesting dialogue.
Right. Where are your interests in our organization? What are you most passionate about? What most resonates with you? What would you like to do more? Have you ever thought about doing more? That also is a key that can open up a gift conversation, or it's a yes, no. Like, have you ever thought about doing more? And if they say, no, I haven't, I'm really committed to these other causes, then at least you know where they stand.
That's right. And it doesn't mean you're not going to get a major gift. It just means you're not going to be in the top three, which may be $1 million, six-figure gifts. But you also know where there might be linkages with their passions to the broader work that you're doing. One thing I like to ask this time of year, or as you're coming really into any time where there's a typical break, is what did you do over the holidays? And people will start telling about what they did. Sometimes it's about getting a large family together at their vacation place, and you can start to understand a little bit about not just about what they do over the holidays, but what kind of resources they might have because of they talking about what they're doing over that. So it's another discovery call that helps, a discovery message that helps you really start to build trust and understand the capacity and the sort of values that the donor has.
Well, speaking of trust, and everybody, we're doing a webinar next week on what is the title of our webinar?
I think it's the Outlook
For major donors
2025 Outlook.
yeah, the outlook for major gift fundraising in 2025.
That's right.
And we're going to be talking a lot about the ups and downs of high net worth donors. And so, you might say that an underperforming major donor is a high net worth individual or high net worth family. And they do have certain quirks. And so what I wanted to bring up in making this point is that the whole idea of trust is something we're going to talk about in our webinar on the outlook for major gift fundraising, that more and more research shows that high net worth donors um, are scared about giving wisely.
Mm.
They're
Hmm.
nervous about throwing money away, and they don't trust an organization to spend their money wisely. And so, if you're dealing with trust issues, which are more, I think the trust issues are bigger than we realize in the nonprofit world. What do you think, Beth Ann, about that idea?
Yes, and I think although big institutions, universities, hospitals, etc., sometimes have more trust because people have had physical experiences with them, which causes sometimes for them to not trust smaller organizations. I think that's a little unfair, but it is one of the problems that keeps driving those donors into places that they think are safe bets. And really, yeah.
And so the trust issue is overcome, but sometimes they'll tell you in their whether you can be one of their top philanthropic priorities. They would say, "Well, I'd like to get to know your people who run the organization more."
Yes, absolutely. Because sometimes, we've all heard of some scandals. It always, for many people, feels like it starts at the top and it's not just somebody else. So I think, again, this is for me another reason why having conversations by putting yourself out there to connect. Donors won't always want to, but you become real yourself and more trustworthy. Follow through on the promises you make sure you're always available, not always available easily. So whether that's a phone call or an email, trust is really at the heart of so much we do, especially when it comes to money.
Okay, here's a question. Do you have advice for when my leadership? Oh, this is a great question. Bless your heart, who's asking this question. Do you have advice for when leadership thinks donors are underperforming and not on our timeline, but the major gift officer is doing discovery and trying to get them to the gift? The donor is going to be on their own timetable. Let's talk about underperforming leadership, because that's an issue when your leaders and your board members and your C-suite, who probably are very removed from the frontline fundraising experience, have expectations and opinions about what donors should be doing. How many times have you ever heard people say they should be giving to us? We're so wonderful. Why they should, you cannot put should on any donor, because the donor is going to do it if they want to, and we can't manipulate them into the gift.
Hand on heart, Gail, the Monday after an event, the leader of an organization who was a founder of it walked in and said, those people, which is also not a way to talk about people, those people should have given more, because I had to raise the paddle. I mean, I was part of the organization. I was shocked by that, because as soon as you enter into philanthropy with what people ought to give you, you are in the absolute wrong framework for mind, frame of mind.
You
Yeah.
also the donor for not being up to speed or a good person, rather than yourself and your team, which can do a better job.
Yes.
That's the underperforming that we really want to talk about, is that the team and the board and the leadership can do a better job, and the board and leadership can get training for their major gift team on how to do this so that you can raise more money. I can't understand why people think that this is a skill that I mean, how long have you been in fundraising, Beth Ann?
Gosh, I
30,
started in 91.
over 30 years for me. I've stopped counting really. But the thing is that training, you got to learn how to do this stuff.
Well, and to keep abreast, I think there are some organizations for whom it is easy because they have supporters who deeply resonate with the cause. But in most cases, it's not just about throwing out some numbers and some need and expecting people to give. I
Mhm.
always say that big gifts take deep conversations. They aren't just going to be written out after, one or two meetings and just meeting the fundraiser. Like you said, Gail, they often want to know, what about the leadership? Who are they? They do their own research or they meet them. It's really important.
I'm still thinking about the leader who came in and said they should have done more of those donors. That woof.
I was so shocked.
It's
I was
like,
so
what can
shocked.
we do better? What can we do better to raise more money? Okay.
Yes. Well, we've talked about this too, just telling good stories, getting to know the donor instead of just coming out and assuming they're an X dollar donor or an XK donor. I really detest that phrase because people take their money seriously. I like to say whether they earned it, whether they inherited, or whether they got it from a lottery, they feel like they earned it and they want to do the right thing with it. And we need to honor that feeling.
That's right. That's right. And so everybody, the best training we think you can find anywhere in the fundraising world, the best major gift training is with our Major Gifts Intensive. We have been running this program for over 10 years, and we have worked with over 200 organizations around the world.
That's right.
And we have in just a 4-month coaching and training program, our organizations have raised 6 and 7 figure gifts. People who have never, ever, ever closed a major gift before have raised $1 million gifts.
That's right. It's a 16-week program. And what's unique, I think, is having both the training and the coaching as an important part of it.
I think that I think probably we should wrap up. My camera's going
That's
on.
fine.
My camera's giving me some trouble. But
That's
anyway,
okay.
Could
Gail
you
will
make a pitch for our major gift? Let's see. I think I got it now. Let's try it again. Yeah,
was causing a little trouble.
I'm call this one. But anyway, let's make a pitch for our Major Gifts Intensive. And everybody, thank you for joining us today.
We'd really love to have you apply. I think we'll put the link to apply if you want to move from just a major gift team that's doing okay to one that's soaring. Confidence, skills, walking you through everything you need to move into the donor conversation, to compress the cultivation period, to ask and to close, always to close.
That's right. Well, good. Thank you, Beth Ann, for joining us. Beth Ann is the director of our Major Gifts Intensive program, and I participate in all the webinars, and we have lots of fun. We'd love to work with you, and thank you for signing in. And remember, those donors are not underperforming. You and your team and your leadership may be the ones who are underperforming.
That's right. Take care. See you later.